you need to be, featuring over 200 programs. Get focused, get hired. Fall admissions deadline July 31st. More at gntc.edu. And I'm Soren E12, Chief Meteorologist, Pastor 4.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Keon Rose, Nooga Radio 92.7 Action Sports. Now, Atlanta Falcons star wide receiver Julio Jones ends his holdout after he and the Falcons agreed to a revised contract. This ends any drama between the two parties just as the Atlanta Falcons begin training camp. In this revised deal, the Falcons moved a total of $2.7 million from the 2019 and 2020 seasons to give Julio Jones more guaranteed money up front. Atlanta also promised Jones a new contract at the end of the season. Jones wasn't the only one in Atlanta getting paid. Both general manager Thomas Dimitroff and head coach Dan Quinn have been extended through 2022. Quinn has a 29-19 record, a 3-2 record in the playoffs, including one Super Bowl appearance, a Super Bowl 51 loss to the New England Patriots in overtime. UTC Mocs have 6 of their players on the 2018 preseason All-Southern Conference team, and the Mocs were picked to finish 5th in the league, according to SoCon coaches. Keon Rose, Nooga Radio 92.7 Action Sports, now.
Nooga Radio.
Are you brain dead? Still voting for pathetic liberals? Take 3 hours of Sean Hannity from 3 to 6.
Nooga Radio.
Then call us in the morning between 9 and 11.
92.7.
Nooga Radio.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, beautiful people in the city of Chattanooga. It is a beautiful day. Happy Friday to you. You made it all the way to the end of the week. My name is Marie Mott, and this is the Marie Mott Show. And, of course, I'm taking it from the streets to City Hall, from City Hall to the mayor's office. Can't leave out the police department, from the valley low to the mountain high, giving you a bird's eye view to what's going on in the city of Chattanooga. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. So today's show is going to be an awesome, awesome show. I have an illustrious guest that I can't wait to dig in with today. His name is Tom Kunish. I hope I'm saying the last name right. Kunish. Yeah, please correct me. But he is a man in the streets, and he is going to give us some information, some history lessons. So really, really listen carefully, folks. Chattanooga has so much history, and I believe that a lot of people don't understand or maybe do not even know the history of Chattanooga. It's very, very rich and very, very diverse. And so I wanted to have Tom come on the show today so he could talk to you, the listener, you, my friend, my neighbor, my church member, the person I let cut in front of me at the grocery store if you don't have more than 5 items. Right, you can't come to me if you got more than 5 items. But you, my friend, the listener, I want you to listen up because there are some things that I really believe that you need to know about Lincoln Park, along with partnering with Tom, who is trying to preserve Citico. If you do not know, the city of Chattanooga has what they call a Citico extension, which would tear through even more of Citico that already has been. And there is a Native American history in Citico. So without further ado, I believe that we're just gonna let Tom have it. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Marie.
Tell the listener who you are and why you agreed to come on today.
Okay. Well, my name is Tom Kunish. I'm from Minnesota. My mom's an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Sioux or Lakota Nation of North and South Dakota. And we've been involved with, or since I moved down here in 1990, 93, we formed the Chattanooga Intertribal Association, and we were involved in stopping the grave looting, the digging, the stealing of grave goods out at Moccasin Bend. And then we started patrolling it. We helped create the Native American Reserve Force with the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department back in 95, I think it was, and stopped all the looting. People were digging up Native American burials to get bones, to get ceramics, to get points, to get anything that they could find and sell to looters, to fellow collectors, they call them, relic collectors. Anyway, we stopped that. Then there was plans to put an amphitheater out on Moccasin Bend, Civil War amphitheater on the Stringer's Ridge side, and they were going to put parking on places where they had sluiced up burials and
Wow.
cultural. I don't know if you know, did you grow up here?
I grew up, born and raised in Chattanooga.
Okay. So, but you look young enough, excuse me. Were you around when the I-24 was put around the, let's see, Lookout Mountain?
I may have been. I don't remember
Okay.
that.
Well, there was no foot next to the river at Lookout Mountain. So where it goes around Moccasin Bend, they had to build that out. And in order to keep the barge traffic, they had to cut the soul off of Moccasin Bend. And you know what was in that soul?
No.
Burials, houses, everything, all Native American. Because this is something that most people don't know and kind of weirds people out, is that Native Americans in the Mississippian period, from the period of about 900 to 1500, didn't have a separate cemetery, didn't take people out and put them away from their mom and dad 5 miles away and you go visit them once in a while. They buried them in their house with them. First, they waited, they put them out and got all the flesh off, and then they took the bones and put them in their house in a corner with them. And that's why looters go looking for holes in the ground where they think that there are burial goods. So out at Moccasin Bend, there are all these burials in the houses. So when you talk houses and burials and dead Native American stuff, you're not talking cemetery here and a village here. You're talking about everything together. And when they cut off the soul of Moccasin Bend, they were cutting into Native American burials, houses, kids, men, women, children buried there, what was presumed for ages, and then sluiced up, put into a slurry, made into a slurry, and piped over to another section of Moccasin Bend as fill. And when we pointed that out, they stopped. They withdrew. So there's that. Of course, you probably know about the UTC mascot, Chief Makanuga, that lots of alumni thought was theirs by right, that they owned a Native American Indian mascot. And we challenged them, and to the university's credit, they said, give us a minute. Give us a minute. Can you trust us a little bit on this? And we did, and they changed it now. Yeah, I think a great mascot. I was working with a mockingbird this morning. Just came in from a job, and there was this mockingbird out there following me around, grabbing stuff from the ground as I was cutting it. So that's what we've been doing for the past 28 years or 25 years. This is our 25th anniversary here.
Congratulations.
Well, there are we are few and far between now. The group kind of collapsed, and lots of people say that they are Native American and that they have Native American blood, but it's hard for some people to prove, and they don't like to be asked about it, challenged.
I didn't understand. 800-8949. If you have any questions, I wanted to throw that in there. 800-8949. Please call if you have some questions that come up during the show. Tom's going to be with me the entirety of the show today, because I feel that it is our duty as a city. Again, I always got to go back to the mayor's State of the City address, which says that this is a city of creators. And I don't believe that creativity should only be within the realms of socioeconomics. But I believe that when we find that we have history, it should be preserved, regardless of whose history it belongs to. And when it becomes a situation that we come across Native American history. And I want the listener, you the listener, I want you, the school teacher, the Sunday school teacher, the police officer that's listening, the neighborhood guard, watchdog. I want you to think about this for a moment. Imagine if someone went to the cemetery where your loved one is, and imagine without your permission that they began to dig up the remains of your loved one. and then discarded them or sold. They went in the coffins and they took off the family heirlooms, the rings or the necklace that Grandpapa always wore, and you buried him with it because that's what he always wore, and you honored him in death and in the next life. Imagine if someone went to where your loved one was and disturbed their remains. This is what we're talking about, people. We're talking about people who were instrumental in helping shaping Chattanooga before there was a European, before there was even African Americans. We are talking about Native American preservation that outdates the majority of us.
Marie, can I interrupt you?
Absolutely.
Do you have any idea what the oldest human creation is in Chattanooga?
No, sir. Educate me.
Take a guess. What? Well, you must know some old things. So let's think. Bridges are pretty old. Mm-hmm. Walnut Street Bridge is pretty old. Is there anything older than that? There must be a mansion up on that hill off Georgia Street that is pretty old, maybe 1880s. Mm-hmm. What else do we think? That the railroad station, what is really old in Chattanooga? Well, there's all sorts of Civil War stuff. Mm-hmm. You know, we have that cannon up there by the courthouse. We have it up on the Lookout Mountain. We have cannons all over the place on Missionary Ridge. That's old. That's 1864, 1865. We have some cabins out at Reflection Riding and Audubon Acres that are supposedly pretty old, that predate the Civil War. So really, when we say that we are a historic city, we have very little, though, that we can point to. Oh, I know. There is the Brainerd Mission. The Brainerd Mission Cemetery over at Eastgate, mm-hmm. on the east side of the Eastgate parking lot, predates the Civil War and goes back to the 1820s, 1830s, when the American missionaries were trying to Christianize and, well, continue Christianizing the Cherokee. Mm-hmm. So that is probably what most people remember as the oldest thing in Chattanooga. They don't point to any mounds. There are much older mounds out on Moccasin Bend. And they sure as heck don't say out on Amnicola, where I pass by every morning, there is the oldest human creation in Chattanooga.
Hold on. Wait. We're going to pump the brakes on that because I need to rewind. So Amnicola Highway, which I believe used to be Dixie Highway, correct?
Shoot. You got me. Or Crutchfield Highway, or what was the other name?
It's been several names over the history, but you're telling me that highway where a lot of people go to connect to Hickson, where a lot of people, there's a lot of traffic.
Chattanooga Coca-Cola, Pepsi Cola,
the police
BASF,
department, the fire department. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You're telling me that there's burial mound that was there.
There is.
They're still there.
The oldest visible human artifact in Chattanooga.
Is that historic?
Yeah, if it's old.
No,
it's
I mean,
historic.
like, has the city deemed that historic?
Oh, well, when you start talking about the city, it's real interesting mm-hmm. because the city is supposedly recognized as a certified local government by the National Park Service. Did you know that?
No.
Certified as a historic preservation city mm-hmm. by the National Park Service. Think about that. It's a federal agency recognizing a metropolitan government and certifying the local government, city of Chattanooga, as historic preservation minded. Now, yes, there is a marker out there. It's on private property. City hasn't seen fit to put a lien on it or anything else. It's just private property. But the Chickamauga Mound, otherwise known as the Roxbury Mound, right over there by BASF, is the oldest human artifact in the city and is regularly ignored. The second major artifact that was in the city, when you say Burke wants it to be a city of creativity, is mm-hmm. that the words you have?
He said, I didn't say, he said that this was a city of creators.
It's also a city of creators. Mm-hmm. True. It's also a city of destroyers.
Ooh.
You know,
Talk to me about that.
Heritage Landing on the North Shore, right over by Girls Prep School, was a Native American village. And it was scraped overnight so that nobody would have to worry about Native American artifacts stopping a project. So it's ironic that it's called Heritage Landing when it's actually Native American heritage that was wiped off that face of our earth so that the Lupton could build houses over there. Okay. That's fact. That's in the newspaper. He has there's a picture of him in the Chattanooga Times with an Indian headdress, calling him Chief Porta Potty or something like that for the sanitation services out there while it was being built. But be that as it may, that was destruction. But the biggest destruction that I think of is Citico Mound. 1,000 years ago, there was a city here, and very few people, maybe 20 people in all of this area know that there was a city here over there across from the Boathouse restaurant known as Citico. And it was not Cherokee. The Cherokee didn't come here until 1776. Most people forget that the Cherokee presence here was a what do you call that? Bat of the eyes, eye wink, snap of the fingers. It was over and done. Dragon Canoe came here and was gone because he was burnt out. He went below the Sauk and did the rest of his fighting from there. And then when John Ross was here, it wasn't the big city of Cherokee at all, just a couple houses. The main Cherokee city was down in Alabama. It was Turkey Town, run by Pathkiller, the last of the great Cherokee chiefs. So Cherokees had moved on. They came from the mountains of North Carolina down to the headwaters of the Tennessee. And that's where we find them in the earlier 1700s, according to Timberlake's map. And then they moved down here. They pushed out the other tribes. Tell me something, Marie.
Okay.
In your education here, who are the tribes of Chattanooga?
I do not know that.
Oh, come on. You know Cherokee.
Oh, I mean Cherokee. That's probably it.
That's it. That's what most people. And to me, there is a fundamentalist thought towards Cherokee presence here that is unfounded. That is incorrect. 1776 to 1838, 62 years. That's not, do you know that Cherokee residences, Cherokee housing, Cherokee presence is from that period of time is indistinguishable from whites? So all the stuff that's known to be Native American here comes prior to the Cherokee. And people don't know that. Before the founding of the United States of America, it was not Cherokee. It was Muskogee and Yuchi. In fact, the name Chattanooga, Chatta, is rock in the Muskogee language. And they were pushed out ahead of the Cherokee, and that's why people didn't know them, because the whites weren't around here and saying, oh, before you guys who was here. No, they said, get out of here, Cherokee. And the Cherokee had already pushed out the Muskogee and Yuchi into Georgia and Alabama, especially Alabama, Mississippi. And then they were pushed out to Oklahoma. They were removed before the Cherokee. More people died on their Trail of Tears than on the Cherokee one. So there's all sorts of goofy history, wrong history, and the people are not being taught the correct history or real history, actual history, the history that archaeologists know, anthropologists know, historians know, but it hasn't gotten out to the rest of the people. So much that, have you ever been down to the aquarium?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you been over by the butterfly place, you know, that new building?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about the passage?
Yes.
Okay. So on the north side of that building is this waterway.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice waterway. My kids love it. And I go down there and I'm disturbed every time.
Why is that?
It really bothers me because all of the artwork on there that's translated into Cherokee words and interpreted by Cherokee is not Cherokee. It was Muskogee and Yuchi. And so you have another culture. This is one of the things that bothers me about the murals that are being put up on the Bell South building and on the tunnel, is that there are white people putting on pictures of black people in predominantly black areas, but it's white people doing it. In Minnesota and other places where there are Native Americans, you say, Native Americans, here, this is yours. What do you want to do? When new Native Americans in a place like, let's say, the Anishinaabe up at Mille Lacs Lake in Minnesota, find something really old, they know when they came to that spot on Mille Lacs Lake. They know that they had a fight and they pushed the Dakota out. They know that old stuff is not theirs. And when they found something really old, and something was kind of special, they were digging a spot for a new senior center. And somebody one of the diggers came across a bear skull. And then they came across another bear skull. These were large black bear skulls, or brown bear skulls. And then they came another one. Over 200 bear skulls in a ring, the Anishinaabe, or otherwise known as the Chippewa and the Ojibwe, found. And what did they do? They didn't say, oh, these are old Ojibwe stuff and we're going to interpret it. No, they said, we are going to call in the Dakota and ask them what they want to do. That's the way it should be treated. It's contact the culture that's there. African Americans here should be doing the African American art that's here.
I believe that. I believe that the people whose history it belongs to should be the ones who write the narrative and give the explanation of what the history is. History is determined by the people who lived it, not the people who perceived it. And so we're going to continue this conversation on the second half of the segment. Please stay tuned. 92.7. We're streaming live on Facebook. 800-8949 is the call in. And we have Tom Kunis live here in the studio talking to you about our Native American history. It's not Cherokee. It is Muskogee.
Muskogee and Yuchi.
And Yuchi. Stay tuned on the second half of the segment.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's news now.
He's been arrested 55 times in 19 years. Now Gary Little is charged with aggressive panhandling, trespassing, and public intoxication. The manager for City Cafe told the Chattanoogan that he had an altercation with Little in the parking lot when he told him to get lost. The TBI nabbed 3 suspects in connection with the death of Thomas Rogers in Pikeville. His body found in the woods shortly after he was reported missing. The TBI in a press release says Nikayla Sullivan, Mercelina Leal, and Kevin Bundy were all charged in Rogers' death, all placed in the Bledsoe County Jail without bond. And Judge Pam Fleener says bookkeeper Francine Lapp stole almost $2 million from an art dealer. Frank Fowler is the damaged party. Reports say Lapp was able to return a series of items purchased with stolen money, including luxury cars, jewelry, handbags, and designer clothing. Val St. John for Nooga Radio, News Talk 92.7, Action News Now.
I live, work, and play in Chattanooga, the scenic city. But when it comes to my next car, truck, or SUV, I'm Alabama bound. Fort Payne, Alabama, and Landers McClarty Ford. Big city selection of new and pre-owned vehicles with the small town price and friendly service. Now, I'm not knocking my hometown, but when it comes to my next ride, I only go to Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne. Their selection is huge. But if I can't find what I want, they'll find it for me with the same low price, same great service, and only a short drive away. And I can go online to look around before I leave the house. Got that next dream ride in your head yet? Yeah, you do. Get a head start at LandersMcClartyFord@FortPayne.com. Don't just dream it, find it at LandersMcClartyFord@FortPayne.com. That's right, Landers McClarty Ford of Fort Payne, Alabama.
Chattanooga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Hello? Who am I speaking with? Eric. You're our winner. Really?
You'll receive tickets for all 3 races between the Camping World Truck Series, Xfinity Series, and the Monster Energy Cup races.
Holy cow.
In addition, you'll receive a 2-night stay at the Microtel Hotel and restaurant accommodations at 2 area restaurants.
Nooga Radio.
Roar into Talladega.
Nooga Radio.
92.7.
Your NASCAR racing station. Nooga Radio 92.7 FM.
Nooga Radio. 92.7.
I got my business up and running and it's already expanding. I got lucky. Lucky because I found Signal Voice and Data. Signal Voice and Data can incorporate all of my business information sharing and communications seamlessly, keep my costs down, and let me work more productively with endless connectivity no matter where I might be. That's called working smart, not hard. Go to signalvoicetn.com and bring the future of communication to your business today. signalvoicetn.com.
Your home is a constant work in progress. Repaint the walls? Yeah, easy enough. Leaky faucet? There's a video for that. But roof repair? You might want some help. That's where Chattanooga roofing contractors come in. They have 3 generations of roofing excellence you can count on. Leave the ladder in the garage. Go to chatroofing.com. That's chatroofing.com for Chattanooga Roofing Contractors, a roofing company you can trust.
Hey, Karen, you need me for that 1 o'clock?
Yes, Cheese, please. Karen, did you get the quarterlies done?
Yep, they're filed in the Cabernet cabinet.
Karen, can you describe the initiatives to the new hire? Thanks.
Oh, sure. Full-bodied, some floral notes, maybe a hint of dark chocolate.
Am I in the right department?
Got wine on the mind? Come unwind at Virgola. Italian wine, oysters, caviar, cheeses, and more. Perfect after work or a romantic date night. Virgola Italian Wine Bar, 608 Georgia Avenue.
Man, you sure you know what you're doing?
Yeah, I worked with my dad on his truck all the time. Just one more bolt to go.
Yeah, wrong bolt. Today's truck ain't your daddy's truck. For repairs on today's vehicles, you need Amco Transmission and Total Car Care of Chattanooga on Lee Highway. Stay on the road, not in the garage. Amco Transmission on Lee Highway. Get it done the right way. The Thompson Pet way. Yeah, I just put that anywhere.
Now, Rick wants you to buy on U.S. Gold American coins. Are you tired of making 1% on your investments with the banks? Even 2 or 3% at best? Now, Rick wants you to buy on U.S. Gold American coins.
Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Brainerd Road. Chattanooga weather.
It's that partly cloudy and hot weather out there for your afternoon highs of around 90. A spotty late shower may push in from the north and west, but not too much. Tonight, becoming fair. Overnight lows a little milder into the mid and upper 60s. The weekend looking great. Lots of sun. Highs tomorrow upper 80s near 90 Sunday. Looking for a new career? Georgia Northwestern Technical College is where you need to be, featuring over 200 programs. Get focused. Get hired. Fall admissions deadline July 31st. More at gntc.edu. And I'm Sorgene 12 meteorologist Patrick Moore.
Nooga Radio 92.7.
Oh, we're back again, and we are continuing a conversation about Native American history, Native American preservation, how they got it wrong, why you need to understand it in the correct way so we can respect the history that predates white European, the history that predates even African American, and why there is a similar connection between Native American history on Citico with Lincoln Park, which is African American history here in the city. And so to explain that, to give great context to that, because it needs to come from the mouth of people who experience it, the people who understand it, and not the people who perceive it. And so to do that today, I have Tom Kunish here. Kunish. I am, good God, shoot me in the head. I'm going to get it right. Oh man, I'm Chattanoogan. I'm country.
It's okay.
But we left off on the conversation of some Muskogee and Uchi history, and I'm going to get that right too. Please forgive me. But we want to draw a correlation from the Citico mound and giving people context of what was the purpose of the Citico mound, what did the Yuchi and the Muskogee do with the Citico mound, and how does that tie into Lincoln Park and why we need to stop the Citico extension and why we need to push for historic preservation that the city should have given already.
Yeah. Well, Marie, okay, here we go. Most people know where Central Avenue is in Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. Central Avenue and Main Street. Then it goes by the National Cemetery. Then it crosses ML King, and it crosses Macaulay, and then it goes over to 3rd Street. And there at the corner of 3rd Street and Central is Erlanger Hospital. And some people want to extend Central Avenue, I think at that point it's north, through what's left of Lincoln Park, and then underneath to build a new tunnel underneath the Southern Pacific Railroad, and then across Citico Creek, and then over to Riverside Drive. Okay, now, when Lincoln Park Neighborhood Association and others were saying, wait a minute, you shouldn't be going through this Lincoln Park area because it's historic. City of Chattanooga sent their people over and they looked at it and they said, nah, it's not historic. We're going to go through anyway. And then Tiffany and her mom and neighbors said, wait a minute, let's get the state to come in on this. And the state came in and said, nah, there's nothing historical here. It's toast. It's been so destroyed by essentially Erlanger's presence there for the past 50 years that it's nothing. Tiffany and her mom appealed to the National Register of Historic Places, and it was the registrar, the keeper of the National Register of Historic Places, that said, whoa, this is historic. They found that the columns there are historic, that the place there, the baseball field there with the Negro Leagues, that the park, which was the only African-American owned, operated, and open to African-Americans place in the city, public, anybody could.
Hold on right there, because there are a lot of young people who listen to this who are probably around my age and a little bit younger. You mean that at that time we couldn't go to Warner Park?
No, Warner Park didn't exist.
Oh.
There were other white parks. Now, let me back up a little. In 1887, here's that article that I sent Kevin Muhammad, and Kevin Muhammad sent to everybody else. And Tiffany has this, Tiffany Rankins, and their mom, Mrs. Hughley, the Lincoln Park, Save Lincoln Park Coalition. A city of Negroes, a town composed entirely of blacks near this city. This is from the Chattanooga Times, December 5th, 1887. And it's called Citico City, the novel town that is forming near Chattanooga. Its rapid growth, the town to be incorporated in the spring. This is Citico City, a city of Negroes, which was the basis of that area. In fact, today, if you go look over in the county deed office, everything that's over there, what area, what section of the city is it listed as? Citico City. That's in every deed of Lincoln Park, Citico City. And that was 1887. So for 30 years, African Americans were there. They built themselves an amusement park and a swimming pool. Now, interesting, people aren't talking about this, but the swimming pool is still there. It's been filled in. We don't know with exactly what, but the construct is still there, and the bathhouse is still there. And the keeper and other people have seen fit to say, no, that's not historic, even though it still exists, even though it is 100 years old, and even though they say the pillars are historic and that the grass area is historic, the building that's there, and all of this, by the way, is owned right now by Erlanger, and Erlanger wants to get it, is in bed. Of course, it's owned and operated in part, appointed board of directors with City of Chattanooga. It's a cozy relationship there. And Erlanger won't sell it until the city says this deal is really going through and we have approved everything and we're going to go strike through go through this, take that pillar down or move it. We're going to, I guess everybody thinks that the bathhouse and the swimming pool is garbage, but it's historic. Then they're going to go dig that tunnel, and then they're going to go join it over there. And we don't think that Lincoln Park is just the green space. I think that is a really wrong idea to think that the part that we can save and preserve and make nicer with $2 million that Councilman Anthony Byrd is proposing, that's not what we want. It's the neighborhood, the African-American neighborhood.
So hold on. Because I think people misunderstand or maybe get this perception that that when councilmen and women speak, that often or make moves or agreements, that often it is on behalf of the interest of the neighborhoods that they represent.
Yeah,
but I heard you say that this is not what we, meaning more than one, this is not what we want. And then we're talking about a diverse group of people. So not just African Americans, but we're talking about Native American. So we're talking about the preservation of basically a soul tie of history.
Yep. Of two oppressed peoples. One that was removed. The Muskogee and Yuchi were pushed out by the Cherokee. Then the Cherokee were pushed out by whites. Then African Americans came in that vacuum where whites weren't, made themselves a city. And guess what's happening now? Removal time. So, full disclosure, I ran against Anthony Byrd last year, and one of the issues was Lincoln Park. Tiffany brought it up. Tiffany Rankins and her mom brought up and said, we want to save this area. And I said, do you know about Citico and they mound and everything? And they said, let's work together. And so we are. And when we said save Lincoln Park, it wasn't save an acre or two of green grass. It was save the community. Do you know that we have, I saw up on your board somewhere, one of these places,
doing my homework.
The historic districts. Do you know that there are 4 white historic districts preserved in Chattanooga and not a single one that's African-American or Native American?
So let's run that back for maybe those who are listening by radio. And again, if you want to call in, 800-8949, 800-8949, because today is a history lesson. Today is a history lesson. And I think for those of you guys who are listening, it doesn't matter what color you are. I don't care if you're white, you're black. I don't care if you're gay, you're straight, you're short, you're tall, fat, skinny. I don't care if you're rich or you're poor. When we talk about the preservation of Chattanooga history, it has to be inclusive. It has to be inclusive, regardless of if it's African American, if it's Native American. We have to talk about preserving the history because it's interesting. I remember as a child, I would have to ask my mother where we were. But me and my 2 siblings traveled with my mother who works for TVA and my father. And we stopped somewhere. I can't remember where. And we actually went into a museum that was based around a burial mound. I remember that. That. And it's interesting.
This was Tennessee?
I would have to ask my mother where we were. I believe it probably was Tennessee, but we were somewhere, but there was a whole museum that was based around a burial mound. And it's interesting to come back home. I never knew this. I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are listening and thinking, wow, I never learned in history class. Well, I can say that a lot of us never really learned about Chattanooga history overall. And I think part of the reason why is when we talk about Chattanooga history, for an article to say a city of Negroes in the Times Free Press over 100 years ago, sweetheart, what that means is we're talking about a very rich colored history, a colored history. And so I think that by controlling the narrative of what it means to save Lincoln Park, then that means you control the understanding of the people of what it means to save Lincoln Park. And so then they don't care because all they think that it is just a green space.
You control what you call a park, the green space, and you deny the other people who live there and saying it's a green space and a neighborhood. And then you also have to say to Native Americans, that was the corn area. Most people don't know that corn came up here from Mexico, from Guatemala, Mexico, to this area. It was brought by Mexicans and Guatemalans, and now it's Tennessee's biggest cash crop apart from pot. But what made this a city was corn, and that area of Citico city of Lincoln Park was fields and habitation for Citico. It was a big city. It was extended for a mile in all directions. And so Lincoln Park is a Native American site too. And other people are saying, no, we'll get $2 million to make this into a really, really nice park. And then you know what they want to do? As one, county commissioner said, you fought the good fight. Now let the market forces take over. And that essentially said to me that this person has given up and is recommending us give up, and saying that Lincoln Park is going to become now a white gentrified area for the
doctors and nurses.
Erlanger staff overnight. So until we get his real historic preservation, do you know that we no longer have historic preservationists on staff? There is no historic overlay. Every city, especially one that's certified local government, is supposed to have an overlay for historic preservation planning. So you can say this is a white area and these are the significant white places, but it's also supposed to be this is a African American area, and we should be preserving these things, these buildings, these streets, these parks, these places.
Oh, we got somebody that called in. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Talk to me and Tom.
Hey, good morning. This is Nate King. I just wanted to call in and say thanks to the history lesson we're getting, and ask if Tom could give a little more context on the impact that the Coalition to Save Lincoln Park and Citico Mound has had on Mayor Burke's plans. If you could give just a little insight on the timeline of what the original plan was when Central Avenue was going to be constructed, and how the Coalition has halted that progress. Thanks again.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you.
Well, as most everybody knows, if you're reading what happens in Chattanooga and Hamilton County, you know that the city and county have long-term plans, and that it's not really one mayor or two mayors in a row. It is a succession of mayors who are given plans that the planning agency has come up with, and everybody is expected to get on board and push it through a little bit more. And so Andy Burke, when he got into office, was simply carrying out, just like Jackson was carrying out Jefferson's plan of removal. Most people don't know that it was Jefferson's plan to remove all Indians west of the Mississippi. And it was only Jackson who did it. Andy Burke is simply trying to push this thing forward because, and the biggest thing is that there are two developments that are supposed to be happening over there. Major money developments. So it's been in the work for 40 years. It's slowly but surely come up. And then Mayor Burke's administration has really tried pushing it forward with the regional planning agency over there on Market Street, and has told people to do it. We've had closed meetings and stuff, and saying, please, let's push this through. What do you need? Can we throw some more money at the green space? And the Coalition to Save Lincoln Park and Citico Mound has stopped the city. And they are still working on how to get around us. A new report just came out from a third-party historian. This woman, this business, looked at what is Lincoln Park as defined by the registrar, the National Register of Historic Places, the keeper, and said, what are the historical elements there, and what would be impacted with this new plan? And lo and behold, last month, or was it earlier this month, the study came out and said, yes, it will be impacted, particularly the pillar that's there. And then they had written off a couple things like the bathhouse and stuff. So now we are going back next week. No, it's the week after, to sit down with the city, with the county, with the Chattanooga Department of Transportation, Tennessee Department of Transportation, representatives of the state historical, all these people, and to see if we can, or what they think about the study, what we think about the study, and their plan, I'm sure, will be to move and mitigate and move the pillars. And we have to, my opinion is we have to get harder and say it's not just this green space. But as the caller, Nate, pointed out, the coalition has successfully, for 4 or 5 years, what is it, 5 years now, stopped any construction over there. But Erlanger, problem is, Erlanger has continued. Number one, they paved and put up a new parking lot, really nice parking lot on the north side of that area. And they are parking cars on the tennis courts in Lincoln Park. And they are arresting, well, they have a security guard come over there and say, you're trespassing. If you try to go into Lincoln Park and walk, they come over and say, you're trespassing, get off. Now, I find that just incredible that African-American community right there, to whom Lincoln Park was built for, is now owned by a public hospital, and the public hospital is telling the neighbors, stay off our grass, and won't work and doesn't support African-American community organizing efforts there. It's screwy, politically screwy, that we don't have county commissioners, city councilmen, all these other people, even the African-American community, up in arms saying, we want this grass. We want that bathhouse. We want this area preserved. We want Citico City recognized as a historic neighborhood, the first African-American historic neighborhood of Chattanooga.
And woo! We have been on fire. Tom is on fire, y'all. And y'all know me. I'm usually the one on fire, so I had to sit back and take a break today. But this was so important for me to get across to you as the listener, because I know for a fact, I probably would say 90% of what I'm hearing, I've never heard. I've never learned. So that means if at 30 years old, if I don't know this history, your children and your grandchildren don't know this history either. And so this is why it was so important for me to reach out to Tom, and I'm so grateful for him coming on the show. It's because until we understand the history that we have, we won't fight for it. And so I am charging those, and it does, again, I don't care what color you are. If you care about the preservation of history, because I would fight for your history to be preserved. If it was you, I would fight for your history to be preserved. You should stand in arms with Tom and the Lincoln Park Neighborhood Association to help push the narrative. It is absolutely disgusting and despicable that we do not have not one historic neighborhood of color. We don't have one. Folks, in a city of creators, that's a problem.
Memphis has one.
Memphis has one.
Nashville has one.
Nashville has one.
Knoxville has one.
Oh, but we progressive, right?
We have a progressive mayor, and we don't have one. We don't even have a historic preservationist.
So who would be the person that we would really have to reach out to push this through, to just twist their arms, beat upside their head to get them to push this?
Well, I don't think it's the county commission. I don't think it's the city council. I think it's the NAACP Unity Group, Urban League, that people have to say to our non-elected leaders, to our leaders, our community leaders, the pastors and ministers. Hey, why isn't this an issue for us? Why is ML King now white? ML King Boulevard now white? How come it's been gentrified? How come African Americans are being moved out, and now we are creating a ring of African Americans around the city like Detroit? Detroit has this urban white center. Yeah.
Man, I am so sorry we're out of time, you guys. We're going to have Tom come back on, because this is an important conversation. Get involved. Reach out to Tiffany Rankins of the Lincoln Park Neighborhood Association. If you have any questions, you want to get in touch with me, reach out to me, Marie Mott, at Facebook. I love you guys. And guess what? It ain't nothing you can do about it. Have a good day.
3, 2, 1. Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4. 92.7 FM's News now.
He's been arrested 55 times in 19 years. Now Gary Little is charged with aggressive panhandling, trespassing, and public intoxication. The manager for City Cafe told the Chattanoogan that he had an altercation with Little in the parking lot when he told him to get lost. The TBI nabbed 3 suspects in connection with the death of Thomas Rogers in Pikeville. His body found in the woods shortly after he was reported missing. The TBI in a press release says Nikayla Sullivan, Mercelina Leal, and Kevin Bundy were all charged in Rogers' death, all placed in the Bledsoe County Jail without bond. And Judge Pam Fleener says bookkeeper Francine Labb stole almost